What if Jesus asked you today face to face, "Who do you say that I am?" Not what does the church say about me, not what do other people say about me, but you. Who is Jesus to you? This Sunday, the 21st Sunday in Ordinary Time, the Gospel brings us to Caesarea Philippi, where Jesus asks his disciples that very question. And Peter answers, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." That answer sounds simple, but it is one of the most important professions of faith in the entire Gospel. And when we connect this Sunday's readings with the themes of the movie The Two Popes, we discover something beautiful. Faith is not the absence of questions. Faith is choosing Christ, even when we do not have all the answers. In Matthew 16, Jesus begins with a question. Who do people say that the Son of Man is? The disciples give him several answers. Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. In other words, people had opinions about Jesus. And isn't that still true today? Some say Jesus was a great teacher. Some say he was a prophet. Some admire his compassion. Some admire his moral teachings. Some see him as a revolutionary. Some aren't sure what to believe. But when Jesus makes the question personal, "But who do you say that I am?" that is the question we cannot escape. Because Christianity is not simply about knowing facts about Jesus. It is about knowing Jesus. Now, to answer the question, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter steps forward and says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus tells Peter that this revelation did not come merely from human reasoning. It came from the Father. Peter has recognized something the world cannot discover by intellect alone. Jesus is Lord. Then Jesus gives Peter an extraordinary mission. He says, "You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. And then I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven." This brings us directly to our first reading from Isaiah. The Lord removes Shebna from his position and gives authority to Eliakim. God says, "I will place the key of the house of David on his shoulder." And notice what the key represents. It represents authority and responsibility. The person holding the key is not simply receiving a privilege. He is receiving a responsibility to serve God's people. That is important when we think about Peter. Jesus does not give Peter the keys because Peter is perfect. In fact, Peter will soon misunderstand Jesus. He will struggle. He will even deny Jesus 3 times. And yet, Jesus still entrusts him with the mission. Why? Because the church is not built on the perfection of its leaders. It is built on Christ. And its leaders are called to serve Christ and his people. That is one of the powerful themes we see in The Two Popes. The movie presents 2 very different personalities, 2 different experiences, and 2 different ways of looking at the church. But underneath the disagreements is a deeper question. How do we remain faithful to Christ while recognizing our own weaknesses? One of the most moving themes in The Two Popes is humility. The characters are not presented as people who have everything figured out. They carry regrets. They carry wounds. They have experienced failure. They disagree. And yet they are invited to listen to one another. That is a lesson we desperately need today. Because sometimes we think being faithful means having no questions, or that being strong in faith means never admitting that we were wrong. But Christian humility says, I may not understand everything. I may have made mistakes. I need God's mercy. I need other people. And ultimately, I need Christ. Peter himself is proof of this. He makes a magnificent profession of faith. You are the Christ. But later Peter will stumble. His faith will be tested. His courage will fail. And still, Jesus will not abandon him. The responsorial psalm gives us the reason. Lord, your love is eternal. Do not forsake the work of your hands. What a beautiful prayer. When we fail, God does not immediately throw us away. When we struggle, He does not abandon us. When our faith becomes weak, He continues working in us. Then Paul takes us even deeper. In today's second reading from Romans, Paul seems almost overwhelmed by the mystery of God. He says, "Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God." Paul recognizes something we often forget. God is God, and we are not. We cannot understand everything. We cannot see the whole picture. We do not know all of God's plans, and sometimes that is difficult. We want explanations. We want certainty. We want God to show us exactly where He is leading us. But faith sometimes means trusting Him even when we cannot see the entire road. This is another powerful connection with the two popes. The movie explores people who are wrestling with the past, the present, and the future of the church. There are questions about leadership, questions about tradition, questions about change, questions about what it means to remain faithful. And perhaps the deeper lesson is this: we don't have to choose between faith and honest questions. We can bring our questions to God. We can wrestle with them. We can listen. We can pray. And we can still say, "Jesus, you are the Christ." So let us return to Jesus' question. Who do you say that I am? Maybe your answer today is strong. Jesus is my Lord. Maybe your faith is struggling. Maybe you're carrying disappointment with the church. Maybe you've been hurt by someone who represented the church. Maybe you're questioning. Maybe you feel like Peter, confident one moment and uncertain the next. If that is you, remember, Jesus did not ask Peter to be perfect. Jesus asked Peter to follow Him. And that invitation is also ours. Follow me. Follow me when the road is easy. Follow me when the road leads to the cross. Follow me when you understand. Follow me when you don't. Follow me when you feel strong. Follow me when your faith is trembling. Because Christian faith is not simply saying the right words. It is allowing our lives to become a response to those words. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. If Jesus truly is the Christ, then He cannot remain only an idea. He must become the center of our lives. And what about those keys Jesus gives Peter? They remind us that authority in the church is ultimately about service. The key is not a trophy. It is not a symbol of personal power. It is a responsibility to open doors, to welcome, to forgive, to teach, to protect the faith, to lead people toward Christ. And perhaps this is something every Christian can ask. What doors is God asking me to open? Can I open a door for someone who feels excluded? Can I forgive someone who hurt me? Can I listen to someone whose opinion is different from mine? Can I welcome someone who has stopped going to church? Can I help someone discover Jesus again? The church becomes stronger not when Christians win every argument, but when Christians help people encounter Christ. And that brings us to our own mission here at Letters of Paul to the Philippines. We live in a country where faith is deeply woven into everyday life. But faith cannot simply be something we inherit. It has to become something we personally choose. Our parents may have taught us about Jesus. Our grandparents may have prayed the rosary. Our families may have brought us to Mass. But eventually Jesus asks each one of us, "Who do you say that I am?" Not your parents, not your priest, not your friends, you. And our answer must become a way of life. This Sunday, Peter gives us the answer. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Paul responds with wonder. Oh, the depths of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God. The psalm reminds us, Lord, your love is eternal. And Isaiah reminds us that God entrusts His people with responsibility. And through the themes reflected in the two popes, we are reminded that even people who disagree, struggle, doubt, or carry wounds can still search for truth, practice humility, and remain centered on Christ. So perhaps today, don't be afraid of the question. Let Jesus ask it again. Who do you say that I am? And wherever you are in your faith journey, answer him honestly. Perhaps simply, Jesus, you are the Christ. And then ask for the grace to live as though you truly believe it. Because to profess Jesus as Christ is not only to speak his name, it is to follow him, it is to trust him, it is to serve him, and when necessary, to carry the cross with him. May our faith be courageous, may our hearts be humble, may our church always point beyond itself to Christ, and may we never forget the promise of today's psalm, your kindness, O Lord, endures forever. If this reflection helped you see today's readings in a new way, please like this video, subscribe to Letters of Paul to the Philippines, and share it with someone who may need a little encouragement in faith this week. Until next time, remember, know Christ, follow Christ, serve Christ. God bless you, and see you in the next letter.